Imagine this. You're sitting alone in your apartment late at night, scrolling through old messages, replaying conversations in your head. Every word, every subtle criticism, every manipulation that once made your chest tighten and your stomach knot feels like it still has power over you. You remember the nights spent worrying about their reactions, wondering if you were enough, constantly bracing for impact, trying to anticipate the storm that never seemed to end. And yet, tonight, something is different. The anxiety doesn't rise as it once did. You reread the same messages, hear the same criticisms, but your chest doesn't tighten, your mind doesn't race. You realize you no longer need their approval, their validation, or even their acknowledgement to feel whole. The storm has passed, and for the first time, you are standing in the calm after it, noticing that the chains that once bound you have quietly fallen away. Emotional calmness is one of the clearest, yet often overlooked signs that you have finally freed yourself from the grip of a narcissist. It is the quiet, subtle shift in your internal world where their words, actions, and manipulations no longer have the power to disturb your peace. For years, you may have lived in a state of hypervigilance, constantly anticipating their next move, dissecting every comment, and wondering how to avoid conflict or gain their approval. Emotional calmness is the exact opposite of that. It is the ability to remain steady and grounded even in the presence of someone who once held the ability to shake you to your core. This calmness begins in small ways. Perhaps you notice that a message or comment that would have previously triggered anger or anxiety now barely registers. Your mind does not immediately spiral into overanalysis, nor does your body react with tension or stress. You realize that the strings they once pulled in your emotional system are no longer attached. It is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending that their behavior doesn't matter. It is about the absence of the intense, automatic reactions that once dictated your mental and emotional energy. You may also find that your responses become measured rather than impulsive. When a narcissist attempts to provoke you, you no longer react defensively or aggressively. You can observe their behavior with clarity, almost as if you are watching a scene unfold from a distance. The urge to argue, to defend yourself, or to correct them diminishes. Emotional calmness allows you to interact with reality as it is, rather than reacting through the distorted lens of past trauma and manipulation. This calmness is not instantaneous. It is the result of repeated practice, self-awareness, and sometimes intentional disengagement. Over time, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. You stop expecting chaos, and you no longer brace yourself for emotional ambushes. Even when the narcissist is unpredictable or provocative, your baseline state of being has shifted from tension and fear to composure and stability. You might notice that old triggers lose their power. Specific phrases, gestures, or behaviors that once sent you into a spiral of guilt, shame, or anger now pass by without leaving a lasting imprint. This is not a matter of ignoring abuse or becoming numb. It is a sign that you have internalized the understanding that their behavior is about them, not you. Emotional calmness is deeply tied to perspective. You recognize the patterns and manipulation tactics, but they no longer penetrate your sense of self. Another key aspect of emotional calmness is the reduction of internal dialogue about the narcissist. Thoughts that used to dominate your mind, such as replaying events, analyzing motives, or trying to predict their next move, gradually fade. You no longer feel compelled to ruminate or obsess over every interaction. This mental clarity feeds emotional stability because your attention is no longer hijacked by their presence or perceived power. You regain mental energy that can now be devoted to your own life, your goals, and your well-being. Physical responses are also indicators of this calmness. You may notice that your body no longer tenses when interacting with them or when recalling past conflicts. Your heart rate does not spike, your muscles are not tight, and your breathing remains steady. These physical signs are proof that your nervous system has begun to recover from the chronic stress imposed by their manipulations. Emotional calmness is a holistic experience. It affects mind, body, and spirit simultaneously. It is important to understand that emotional calmness does not equate to disengagement from reality or avoidance of consequences. Rather, it is a state of empowered detachment. You can still hold someone accountable, make decisions, and assert yourself without being overwhelmed by emotional reactivity. The difference is that you are no longer functioning from a place of fear or compulsion. You are functioning from a place of control and self-possession. You may also notice that emotional calmness extends beyond interactions with the narcissist themselves. It permeates your daily life. You feel less anxious about social interactions, decision-making, and conflicts in general. You are less reactive to criticism, disappointment, or confrontation. The skills and internal strength you have developed in dealing with a narcissist translate into broader emotional resilience, making you more adaptable, grounded, and confident in multiple areas of life. Finally, emotional calmness allows for reflection and clarity. When you are calm, you can honestly assess relationships, boundaries, and personal growth without distortion. You can identify unhealthy patterns without shame or guilt, and you can make deliberate choices that serve your long-term well-being rather than reacting to short-term triggers. This inner stability is the first real, tangible marker that the narcissist no longer controls your emotional world. Detachment from validation is a profound shift that occurs when you no longer rely on a narcissist to define your worth or to confirm that you are enough. For years, you may have measured your value through their eyes, constantly seeking approval, fearing disapproval, or trying to anticipate their reactions. Every action, word, or decision could feel like it needed their blessing to be legitimate. Detachment from validation marks the moment when you stop needing their approval and recognize that your worth is inherent, not granted by anyone else. This detachment does not mean you stop caring about others' opinions entirely. It is not about becoming indifferent to feedback from people whose input is meaningful or constructive. It is about separating yourself from the manipulative framework that a narcissist uses to control and diminish you. Their praise, criticism, or indifference no longer dictates your self-esteem or your emotional state. You start to see that their approval was conditional, inconsistent, and often weaponized to maintain control. One way this manifests is through a change in thought patterns, where once your mind was preoccupied with how to gain favor or avoid disapproval, now you naturally prioritize your own judgment. You weigh your choices based on your values, goals, and understanding of right and wrong rather than worrying about whether the narcissist will approve. You begin to trust your instincts and your inner voice rather than constantly second-guessing yourself in response to their manipulations. This shift also affects your sense of agency. Detachment from validation allows you to act freely without the fear of retribution or judgment. You no longer perform or shape your identity to meet someone else's expectations. Decisions that once felt impossible because they might upset the narcissist now feel empowering and straightforward. You reclaim autonomy over your life, and with it, a sense of freedom that was long suppressed. You may notice that your emotional reactions to their approval or criticism change dramatically. Praise from a narcissist no longer inflates your ego in the same way it once did. Their disapproval, instead of triggering shame, fear, or guilt, may leave you largely unaffected. You might feel a flicker of irritation or recognition of their behavior, but it does not have the same destabilizing effect it used to. This emotional neutrality is a clear sign that you are no longer dependent on their validation. Detachment from validation also influences your relationships outside of the narcissistic dynamic. You begin to cultivate connections where approval is mutual, genuine, and freely given, rather than coerced or conditional. You naturally gravitate toward people who respect your autonomy and celebrate your accomplishments without demanding submission or control. At the same time, you can recognize manipulative patterns in others more clearly and avoid repeating cycles that previously left you vulnerable to emotional exploitation. Another important aspect of this detachment is the absence of compulsive people-pleasing. You no longer feel the need to perform, explain, or justify your behavior to maintain a semblance of approval. You act authentically, aligning your actions with your values rather than with the expectations or demands of the narcissist. This authenticity is both a reflection of inner strength and a natural byproduct of breaking free from external control. Detachment from validation often coincides with a heightened sense of self-awareness. You become aware of how much energy and attention you previously devoted to monitoring the narcissist's reactions and manipulating your behavior to gain their favor. With this awareness comes relief and empowerment. You redirect that energy toward your personal growth, your ambitions, and the relationships that are truly nourishing. The shift is subtle at first, but increasingly profound over time. You may also notice that your inner dialogue changes. Instead of constantly questioning whether you are enough or replaying interactions to gauge approval, your thoughts are centered on what feels right and meaningful to you. This internal validation becomes your default source of self-worth. You learn to celebrate your successes, acknowledge your growth, and confront mistakes without needing external reassurance, creating a stable foundation for emotional health. Finally, detachment from validation is reinforced through repeated experiences of independence. Every time you make a decision without seeking the narcissist's approval, every time you express an opinion without fear, and every time you assert your boundaries without hesitation, you strengthen the neural and emotional pathways that support autonomy and self-trust. Over time, the need for external validation diminishes naturally, almost imperceptibly, until you reach a state where you are fully empowered to live on your terms. Healthy boundaries are one of the most profound indicators that you have gained true autonomy after experiencing narcissistic abuse. For a long time, boundaries may have been non-existent or constantly violated. You might have felt guilty for asserting yourself or afraid of the consequences of saying no. A narcissist thrives on pushing limits and eroding personal space, making you doubt your right to set any boundaries at all. Healthy boundaries emerge as a clear signal that you have reclaimed control over your life. Establishing boundaries begins internally. It starts with understanding what you are willing to tolerate and what crosses a line. This awareness is crucial because, without it, boundaries become arbitrary or ineffective. You learn to recognize the subtle forms of manipulation, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or passive-aggressive behavior that once forced you to bend and compromise yourself. Healthy boundaries are not rigid walls, but clear markers of self-respect and personal integrity. Once you know your limits, you naturally enforce them. Saying no longer carries the heavy weight of anxiety, guilt, or fear of reprisal. You understand that your boundaries are about preserving your well-being, not punishing others or controlling their behavior. This shift in mindset is significant because it transforms boundaries from defensive tools into acts of self-empowerment. You no longer negotiate your values to appease someone else. Healthy boundaries also manifest in your interactions. When someone attempts to overstep or manipulate, you respond consistently and calmly. There is no over-explaining, apologizing excessively, or rationalizing your limits. Your communication is direct and firm, reflecting clarity and confidence. This consistency reinforces the boundaries themselves, making it less likely that others will test them repeatedly. Over time, people begin to respect your limits automatically because they sense your commitment to them. Another important aspect of healthy boundaries is emotional clarity. You no longer absorb blame, guilt, or shame from the narcissist. Their attempts to make you feel responsible for their emotions, problems, or behaviors no longer succeed. Emotional boundaries are just as critical as physical or practical ones, because a narcissist often exploits feelings to maintain control. By protecting your emotional space, you preserve your mental and psychological health. Healthy boundaries also affect how you allocate your time and energy. You no longer feel obligated to respond to constant demands or intrusions. You can prioritize your needs, goals, and well-being without hesitation. This does not mean that you become selfish or uncaring. It means that you operate from a place of self-respect and intentionality. Your energy is spent on meaningful relationships and pursuits rather than being drained by manipulation and control. You may notice that healthy boundaries change the dynamics of existing relationships. People who were once able to dominate or influence you through fear or guilt now encounter resistance. Your confidence in enforcing boundaries communicates strength, and it naturally alters how others engage with you. Some relationships may shift, and some may end, but this is a natural consequence of removing toxic influence and protecting your autonomy. Healthy boundaries also foster self-trust. You begin to rely on your judgment to navigate situations, rather than constantly seeking guidance or reassurance from the narcissist. You recognize when someone is crossing a line, and you feel confident in asserting your limits without doubt. This self-trust is essential for long-term emotional resilience because it ensures that you will continue to uphold your boundaries even under pressure. Setting healthy boundaries is also intertwined with self-compassion. You learn to give yourself permission to protect your energy and emotions without shame. For years, a narcissist may have instilled guilt whenever you tried to assert yourself, making self-protection feel selfish or wrong. Healthy boundaries allow you to reclaim the narrative, reminding yourself that your needs and well-being are valid and worthy of defense. An often overlooked aspect of healthy boundaries is how they influence your decision-making. When you operate within clearly defined limits, you make choices that align with your values rather than reacting to manipulation or coercion. You become deliberate about the commitments you accept, the conversations you engage in, and the energy you invest in others. This deliberate approach reduces stress and increases satisfaction because your life becomes aligned with your priorities rather than dictated by someone else's agenda. Finally, healthy boundaries are self-reinforcing. Each time you uphold a limit, you reinforce your sense of autonomy and self-worth. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to maintain boundaries even in challenging situations. The more consistent and deliberate you are, the more natural it becomes to protect yourself from manipulation, overreach, or emotional exploitation. Healthy boundaries are not a one-time achievement, but a continuous practice that reflects ongoing growth and empowerment. Self-confidence restored is one of the most profound indicators that a narcissist no longer holds power over you. Living under the influence of a narcissist often erodes your sense of self. You may have doubted your abilities, questioned your judgment, and felt unworthy or inadequate. The constant criticism, manipulation, and belittling are designed to chip away at your self-esteem. When self-confidence returns, it signifies that the internalized messages of the narcissist have lost their grip and that you are reclaiming your identity. This restored self-confidence begins quietly. You notice small shifts in your thoughts and feelings. Perhaps you speak up more in conversations, assert your preferences without hesitation, or make decisions without second-guessing yourself. The internal dialogue that was once dominated by fear, doubt, and self-criticism gradually transforms into one that is affirming, supportive, and grounded in reality. You no longer need external validation to feel capable or worthy. You may also notice that the fear of judgment diminishes. Before, a narcissist's opinion might have felt like a verdict, capable of altering your mood or self-perception instantly. Now, criticism or negative comments from them, or even from others, no longer shake you to the core. You evaluate feedback with discernment, accepting what is constructive and discarding what is manipulative or irrelevant. Your confidence allows you to separate truth from distortion and act accordingly. Another key element of restored self-confidence is the ability to take up space in the world without apology. You no longer shrink yourself to avoid conflict or discomfort. You express your opinions, pursue your goals, and assert your needs without fearing rejection or backlash. The restored confidence is reflected in posture, tone of voice, and body language. It is a quiet power that communicates, "I belong, I matter, and I am enough," without the need for defense or justification. Restored self-confidence also manifests in decision-making. In the past, you may have deferred choices to the narcissist or doubted your ability to make sound judgments. Every decision felt weighted with potential for criticism or conflict. Now you trust yourself. You recognize that your decisions are informed by your knowledge, values, and intuition. Even when mistakes happen, you view them as opportunities for growth rather than evidence of inadequacy. This confidence also enables emotional independence. You no longer rely on the narcissist to regulate your mood or affirm your worth. Their praise is no longer addictive, and their disapproval is no longer devastating. Emotional autonomy is closely tied to self-confidence because it reflects the understanding that your value is inherent and not contingent on external approval or recognition. Restored self-confidence often strengthens boundaries. When you believe in your own worth, you are naturally less likely to tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or control. You assert limits without guilt and disengage from situations or people that compromise your integrity. Confidence provides the courage to protect yourself and reinforces the cycle of personal empowerment. It is common to see this confidence reflected in relationships. You attract healthier connections because your energy signals that you will not accept toxic behavior. You are able to recognize and walk away from interactions that replicate patterns of abuse or manipulation. Your restored self-assurance allows you to engage with others from a place of choice rather than fear, creating relationships based on mutual respect and authenticity. Self-confidence restored also impacts your ambitions and creativity. Without the weight of constant self-doubt or fear of criticism, you are free to explore new opportunities, take risks, and pursue passions that were previously stifled. Your energy is no longer consumed by managing the narcissist's expectations or repairing damage caused by their manipulation. Instead, it is channeled into self-expression, growth, and achievement. You may notice a newfound ability to celebrate accomplishments without hesitation. In the past, you may have minimized your successes, worried about provoking envy, or feared that acknowledgement would be twisted by the narcissist. Now, you recognize your achievements as valid and meaningful. You allow yourself pride and satisfaction without fear, and this validation comes from within rather than being dependent on external approval. Restored self-confidence is also about forgiveness and compassion for yourself. You acknowledge that the period of manipulation was not your fault, and you release lingering self-blame. You accept that you did your best under difficult circumstances and that growth requires patience and understanding. This self-compassion reinforces confidence because it creates an internal foundation of stability that is independent of external conditions. Finally, self-confidence restored is not just about the absence of fear or doubt. It is about proactive empowerment. You make choices aligned with your values, pursue your goals with clarity, and assert your voice with conviction. You feel capable, resilient, and grounded. This internal strength radiates outward, influencing all areas of your life, from personal relationships to professional endeavors, and signals a definitive reclaiming of power from the narcissist. Reduced obsession is a powerful indicator that a narcissist has lost their hold over your mind. When you were entangled in their manipulation, your thoughts were often consumed by them. You replayed conversations, analyzed motives, and tried to predict their next move. This constant mental engagement is exhausting, and it keeps the narcissist at the center of your world. Reduced obsession signals a shift where your attention is no longer hijacked, and your mind begins to reclaim freedom. At first, you might notice that intrusive thoughts occur less frequently. Memories or interactions that once triggered intense rumination no longer dominate your mental space. You are able to think about other things without guilt or effort. This change reflects a growing internal detachment and signals that you are no longer emotionally dependent on the narcissist's approval, reactions, or validation. Reduced obsession also shows in your emotional responses. Previously, even minor triggers could spark anger, anxiety, or fear. You might have been consumed by the need to understand or control the narcissist's behavior. Now, when they appear in your thoughts, the emotional charge is muted. You may feel a flicker of recognition, but it no longer dictates your mood or energy. Your mental and emotional space becomes yours again. Reduced obsession is often accompanied by mental clarity. You can make decisions without their influence clouding your judgment. You reflect on the past with understanding rather than fixation. Instead of reliving every interaction, you observe patterns and learn from them, creating insight without emotional entanglement. Finally, reduced obsession represents reclaiming ownership of your life. Your thoughts are no longer dictated by someone else's manipulation. You can focus on your priorities, your ambitions, and your well-being. This mental independence is subtle but profound, signaling that the narcissist's psychological hold has weakened or vanished. Empowerment in relationships is a clear sign that you have moved beyond the influence of a narcissist. While under their control, relationships often felt unbalanced, draining, or conditional. You may have constantly worried about others' reactions, walked on eggshells, or sacrificed your needs to maintain peace. When empowerment emerges, you approach relationships with clarity, confidence, and a strong sense of self, recognizing that your well-being is equally important. Empowerment also includes the ability to disengage from unhealthy relationships without drama or fear. You can step away from people who are controlling, manipulative, or disrespectful without being consumed by guilt, fear, or anxiety. This skill reflects emotional maturity and a deep understanding of your own value. Walking away is no longer about punishment, but about self-preservation and growth. You may notice that your confidence attracts healthier interactions naturally. People sense your sense of self-respect and are more likely to treat you with consideration. You no longer attract those who seek to dominate or exploit you because your energy communicates strength and autonomy. Empowered relationships are based on mutual respect, trust, and authentic connection. Empowerment also allows for open communication. You can express your feelings, needs, and opinions without fear of retaliation or dismissal. Conversations are no longer battlegrounds, but opportunities for connection and understanding. You are no longer compelled to hide your emotions, manipulate outcomes, or suppress your voice to maintain the relationship. Finally, empowerment in relationships gives you freedom and peace. You are no longer trapped by the need to control or monitor others, and you do not allow anyone to control you. Your connections are nourishing rather than depleting, and your sense of self is intact. You enter relationships as a whole person, grounded in your values, and capable of fostering mutual growth and respect. Life moving forward is perhaps the most visible sign that a narcissist no longer controls your existence. For years, your focus may have been on the narcissist, their moods, their manipulations, their reactions. Your life revolved around managing their expectations, avoiding conflict, and trying to maintain a fragile sense of peace. When life begins to move forward, you notice a shift. Your attention, energy, and priorities are no longer consumed by them. This shift often starts subtly. You begin to invest more time in your own goals, passions, and well-being. Activities that once seemed impossible or secondary take precedence. You may pursue hobbies, career opportunities, or personal growth projects with renewed vigor. Your focus is on creating a fulfilling life rather than reacting to someone else's agenda. A clear indicator of life moving forward is the absence of lingering resentment or preoccupation, where once you replayed past interactions or obsessively analyzed every slight, you now reflect without emotional entanglement. Memories may surface, but they do not dictate your present. The narcissist no longer occupies the central role in your narrative. You do. Life moving forward also shows in your decision-making. You make choices based on what serves your growth and happiness rather than what avoids conflict or seeks approval. Decisions that once felt risky because of potential backlash now feel liberating. You are no longer paralyzed by fear or guilt. You act from clarity and confidence. Financial, career, and personal milestones often become easier to pursue. When life moves forward, you are able to focus on long-term goals rather than constantly managing crises created by a narcissist. The mental space you once devoted to controlling or predicting their behavior is now invested in building stability and success in your own life. This forward movement also impacts your emotional well-being. You experience less anxiety, stress, and hypervigilance. The compulsive need to anticipate or manage the narcissist's reactions is gone. You can plan for the future, dream bigger, and take calculated risks without being held back by the fear of manipulation or sabotage. Even small indicators like enjoying simple moments or making future plans without hesitation signal that life is moving forward. You no longer live in a state of pause, uncertainty, or emotional captivity. Your time is no longer defined by someone else's control. It is shaped by your desires, priorities, and growth. Finally, life moving forward reflects a fundamental shift in perspective. You recognize that your purpose, happiness, and success are not dependent on someone else's approval or presence. You act, create, and grow freely. The past may inform your wisdom, but it no longer restricts your journey. You move forward fully, reclaiming the life that belongs to you. Each of the signs, the calmness that replaces constant emotional turbulence, the detachment from the need for approval, the unwavering boundaries, the restored self-confidence, the freedom from obsessive thought, the empowerment in relationships, and the forward momentum in your life represents a layer of autonomy reclaimed. Together, they paint a picture not of someone defeated or broken, but of someone quietly and unshakably whole. In the end, defeating a narcissist is not about proving a point or seeking revenge. It is about reclaiming yourself. It is about creating a life where your energy, emotions, and choices belong to you, and where your relationships, your ambitions, and your joy are guided by your values rather than the manipulation of someone else. This is victory in its purest form, quiet, profound, and irrevocable. True freedom is not in silencing them. It is in the peace you build when their voice no longer defines you.